Hey, good day, everyone. It's the Monday Not So Live show, which is usually me, Cheryl Snow, Ugly Dave Claxton. Guess what? Dave moved to the middle of nowhere. Well, not quite the middle of nowhere, but in Canada, how they're kind of like not quite what we have here in America? So, yeah, his signal sucked. He kept jumping in and jumping out. It wasn't working. And I don't want to give you a subpar product. I want to give you a par or above par product. So we cut out the first messy 10 minutes with Dave and started with our great interview with Greg, who talks a lot about data and sleds. And boy, do we go super deep on that one. So enjoy that. And then all the fun stuff with me and Cheryl. Away we go. I would do the Deadly Dozen solo, maybe eventually, because you get to break it up with the runs. But what a fuck. It's so many reps, Cheryl. It's
It's like
60 reps.
60 reps, right?
60 reps of things, which when you split up are so much more tolerable. And
Right.
I couldn't imagine doing that many reps.
What do you think did it for your quads? Like what was the station that was the toughest for you?
Well, the thing that you want to throw up on is probably the bear crawls, right? And the BBJs is probably where you kind of want to die.
Right.
But I don't remember my quads hurting so bad. I'm much more concerned with my upper body because I still have something going on here that may never be fixed. I mean,
Mhm.
I could go do fucking 8 weeks of PT or whatever, and I just don't. I'm just so fucking tired of PT in my life. But it's very obvious that I can do single arm this way, and it's difficult and it's a workout. But when I do it this way, it's like every rep is so. I want to point out that first of all, where I did it was Mandy and Kevin, who are amazing. I've now done multiple events at their gyms, DECA events at their gyms, and they're great. And they, when we were doing the plate overhead and the plate carry, walking back and forth, you got to do 12 lengths, I think, for one of them. I was trying to hand it to Clayton, and they were like, no, you have to put it down. And I was like, are you sure that's in the rules? And they were like, yes. And I then realized that the two fulls I did a full in England and a full in Texas, the judge didn't say anything. So I got
Oh,
away with it because it's a massive momentum changer, right?
right.
To just
Right.
hand it to your friend versus putting it down.
How
Um,
heavy is the plate?
and that should be the rule. It should be the rule. It's not that bad. I don't mind those nearly as much, especially
Right.
overhead. The overhead is like a farmer's, just fucking hustle and it's over. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think we did. I think I did. It's 12 laps on that one because it was a small gym. I think at the event it's usually down and back 3 times, but because of this small gym, so I went down and back 3 times, pass, down and back 3 times, pass, and I think I did the same thing with the front carry. And the front carry is more painful on the back. That's what was hurting the most during the event was my back. And I
Okay.
thought, well, my core kind of sucks and my form isn't great, which is true. But everybody afterwards said their back hurts, so I know it's not just me and my bad core.
Hmm.
But I definitely think anybody who's listening, who's done HYROX, who's done a bunch of DECA gym events, go do a Deadly Gym event, go do a Deadly Dozen when it comes near you, and it's just a whole different. There's no machines, so there's just no. It's just work.
It's just plates and dumbbells,
Just
right?
plates and dumbbells.
And what were you doing that got your legs? So is it lunges that
Well,
they're
I'm thinking about it now, and I guess it must have been. But again, like during, it didn't seem that bad. It was my back that was going. Even with there's the plate to overhead, and then there's ground to overhead, and then
right?
there's
So it's all this upper,
the
right,
thrusters, and then burpee thrusters, which they call, what does he call those? Deadly fucking whatever the fucks.
right.
I mean, it's a great workout. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
great workout, and especially for me and Clayton, who are equally support each other when we're doing well, and equally, um, what's the word, when you commiserate with each other when you're not training and you're eating poorly. So we're besties that way, and so it was a great event for us to do together.
Yeah.
And so
I will say,
we did it in like 42 minutes, and Kevin and Mandy, I think in their solo did it in 32 minutes.
oh, okay. So it's a decent chunk of time regardless. Like you're gonna be out there for a little bit getting it
Right,
done, more
right.
than a decamile and certainly heavier than a decamile. I will
Yeah,
say
a deca strong, you're done with in no time.
right, and
I
this
mean,
is a lot more.
I did the deca mile with I did the deca mile with Dustin in 22 minutes. Now he did do a fair amount of the work, where in this it was mostly 50-50, except for the alternating overheads, which also I got away with at the other ones, where I just said, hey, I'm just going to do them with one arm. And could you explain to me why you think that's so? Like, I don't think it's an advantage to tax one arm more. So why would it be a rule that you have to alternate? Alternating makes sense as a workout, but if someone's like, my left arm's broken, can I just do the right? They're not going to game the system. They're not going to win, right?
Right. I think maybe it's just a movement standard they've decided to uphold for some reason. Because
Again,
I
I'm
guess,
not mad.
I
I'm
mean,
not
in some
mad at it.
ways, the
I'm not
fitness
mad at
test would be that you're strong on both sides, not just one, right?
it. Right.
So,
I'm not, like I said, I'm not mad. I'm not like they should change it. I just thought, and again, I know I did it. I know when I was in England, at least. I don't remember Texas as well, but I definitely remember in England it was like, hey, I can't do these. Can I just do this? And the girl was like, sure, whatever.
yeah, right. Here's what I will say about lunges is if I don't do them regularly, like at least once a week, I will get sore every time I do them. Like there's just something about the stretch on that quad and the fact that we have to slow ourselves down to lower that it kills me every time. So I have to do lunges every week or else I'm in trouble.
Yeah,
So it doesn't surprise me.
I want to quickly actually go through them now that I think about it. And I
I
have
would
a
be curious, and I want to know the weights. I want to know the weight that you had to use, like how heavy is the plate and so forth.
well, remember we discussed that for the women's weights, people were saying was a little light. For the men's weights, I think they're fine. So here's
But
the picture of
60 of anything is going to be tough. 60 body weight squats is tough.
no, I know, but okay. Farmer's carry, right? Deadlift, lunge, snatch, BBJ, goblet squat, front carry, push press, bear crawl, clean and press, overhead carry, devil press. That's what he calls the last one. So
Right.
there's always a wait for it, rep labor, sorry, a distance labor and then a rep labor. So that's right. There's ones with movement going down the track and back, I mean, going down the field and back. And then there's the ones where you're stationary. And that's the way they set it up. And that's another thing, by the way, I missed about being in the middle of a track is when you bear crawl until exhaustion, you just sort of roll out and your partner takes over. And you can't do that on a concrete gym floor, even if there's carpet. Laying in the grass is kind of your prize. You know what I mean?
It's your little tiny vacation.
Exactly. So, um,
It looks like a job. It really looks like a job.
I think you'd like it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I honestly like you put it indoors and I'm all about that. Like I'm not so sure I want to be in the grass. I don't think I want to bear crawl in the grass.
Right.
I think that's my one concern about this. So I would love to try something like that for sure.
They also have these deadly erg competitions, which are also gym events. And they, even though I told them not to do it when I saw them in Texas, they're doing it anyway. The leaderboard has row, bike, and run all in one leaderboard, which I think is dumb. And
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't want to call them out again publicly, but I had to. I had to put it in the comments. I was like, why are you doing this? Why is the first person had a run and the second person has a bike and the third person has a
Yeah.
row? Even if you don't have a lot of people, just let the spots be blank. Let there only be 6 times, whatever it is.
Yeah. You
Just
can't compare.
yeah, to me that's not smart. And I think they eventually will. But yeah, none of these it's just yeah, the sheer volume. And also because Deca is 10 and HYROX is 8, when you get to like the squats after 6 and you're like, "Oh man, I'm only halfway done." That's kind of a bummer. So you have to just go, "What's the next one? What's the next
Yeah.
one? What's the next
Yeah.
one?" And
Oof.
so it wasn't a huge turnout. As I mentioned in my post, we did win all male teams and our age group because we were the only male team. There was a
Nice.
handful of people that did it solo. There was a couple of mixed doubles. Wasn't a big turnout, but it was their first event. I mean, people just don't know about it yet. So I just think they want to do as many events as they can because apparently, unfortunately, DECA used to have a thing where you could launch an event, I guess give them 6 weeks and they put it on the board, and now it's 12, which they think is too much. Like you have to give 12 weeks notice. So if you have to do that, then everybody kind of ends up probably with a lot of the same dates because you can only do, I guess, 3 events a year, right? 12, what's 52? I guess you could do
Well, you could just give 12 weeks notice and layer it. going
Right.
forward. But that's
Right.
still
But I know
asking,
the affiliates aren't happy with it.
right. That's asking the gyms to plan quite a ways out, which would be tough.
Right.
It's better for athletes though. I haven't done my Decamile yet, and I'm still planning on doing a Decamile. And I couldn't find anything. And then finally Camp Rhino here put one on the calendar. And I think it was far enough out, because for a while there, they were just giving us like maybe 6 weeks notice. And that's actually not easy to plan for 6 weeks if you actually want to do well, to kind of sharpen down. So I can see why they're asking that at the gyms, and I'm glad that the gyms are willing to step up and do it.
Right. What was I going to say? But yeah, I think I told you that HYROX did change their tune about sims, and you can 100% do a simulation as long as you don't do it at an arena. And as long as you call it a simulation, they're cool with it.
Okay.
So you can do 8 stations, 8 runs, same distance, all of it. You just can't. You got to do it at like a track or your gym.
And can you have a DJ?
I think you're allowed to have a DJ.
Because that would make it great.
I do. Yes, you can have a DJ.
Okay.
As far as I know. So I'm going to this thing in Ontario. I just put a podcast about it. That's going to be 2 days. There's these guys in Ireland that do one. I just met a local guy here that runs a nonprofit. They want to put one on. And I'm like, yeah, you can totally do one. I told him, I said, do half runs and maybe half reps, or just lower some of the reps if you're getting, there's no HYROX until April in Atlanta again, probably. So here's a chance to do one. But just to get more people through, I would say I would make the run, he's going to have to do the runs out and backs, and then maybe do, maybe make the sleds a little lighter, or maybe a slightly less you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they could keep the stations the same and have the runs, and I think that would be a great event.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get our. You want to talk about sleds with our sled expert?
I want to hear from the sled expert. I put earrings on for the sled expert.
Thank God.
Yeah. No, so I think this is going to be really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about it. So we'll do that, and then we can, because we got Deca Carolinas, we've got the rule book. We haven't even talked about half the stuff that went on at the press conference. So there's tons of stuff to talk about, but we need to get this sled stuff out of the way.
Okay, I'm sending it to him right now. Also, can the record show that what was I going to say? I can't find it. I can't find the link. We can save Deca stuff for next week. I'm fine with that.
There's not a lot to say. I mean, one of the things I said to Dave privately was there were no controversies in the elite races. There were no equipment issues. I mean, the whole thing just ran great. So there's not much to say.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was at my event, and then I was doing, house stuff and whatever else, and I caught the results and was happy for the people that got results and posted those. But yeah, I didn't really see much. And it looks like, they had, I think, almost 1,000 people, which is good, right? They're starting to get.
Well, look, I mean, they're selling out, but they just can't handle the numbers. They need to change the footprint. We've talked about that before, to be able to accommodate more people, because I think more people would come, and I think it would help the event a lot to just change the footprint so that they can manage that. The heat was an issue, and I do think that
they ran out of the heat, wasn't
it was. There he is. Excellent.
Hello.
Finish your sentence.
I will just say that I think for DecaFit people who are trying to get on the leaderboard, you probably shouldn't be doing it in the summer. I just think it's going to be an issue, because they're just not going to get the same kind of times that they would when the weather is cooler. And that's going to be across the board, age group and elites. And so I'm kind of glad, I went in Anaheim in March.
Yeah, but I mean, we do HYROXs all around the world in all seasons. I don't think you should worry about a summertime race.
All I need to do in a HYROX is beat the people that are there. If I come first in my age group, then I qualify for Worlds.
Right.
I don't have to go to a global leaderboard where my time goes up against everybody else in the world.
Right,
And
but
so it does make a difference.
right, but I'm saying, why would I have to worry about what time of year it is? I need to work. Why would I have to worry about what time of year it is?
That makes, I mean, it makes total sense because Emmy, my wife's Imogen Cross, she was
She was
Spartan
there.
Pro. Yep, she was. And the text message that I got was, "Oh my God, it's so hot in here," right? And I forget where the venue was, but people were saying that the heat, it was a struggle because of the heat. And one of the things that I do like about the HYROX events is the fact that everyone that you go to, they've got that AC pumping to the point where it's almost cold, right? You go in there, and I
Right, but
hate it. I hate
Be
it because,
DECA
like,
should
when
be
I
able to
run,
handle
it
something
dries
like
my sinuses out.
right, but DECA should be able to handle building with working air conditioning. You guys are making it sound like it's a luxury.
So what I'm saying is that if they're going to be in a venue that is hot, that is probably going to make you maybe 2 minutes slower than you normally would be. And because this is based on a global leaderboard time system, that will have an issue. That will be an issue as far as your ability to qualify for Worlds.
So let me just put this into perspective. If you go to a track meet around the world, all those track meets, they take the ambient temperature, they take the humidity temperature, they take the wind direction and the speed, and they adjust all of those times, your wind adjusted, temperature adjusted, elevation adjusted events. Those are elements, and that's a standardization, not just in US track and field, but it's in world track and field and Olympics. So when you go to an Olympic stage and you run 100 meters and everyone's running the 100 meters in the same venue, that 100 meters, that's the best of the best of the best. But if you take someone who ran 100 meters in Denver and someone who ran 100 meters in Zimbabwe and someone who ran 100 meters in Copenhagen, it's going to be completely different and adjusted because of those elevation, timing, time of day, wind, ambient temperature
Right.
differences.
Right. But I'm not looking. We're going to get to the sleds in a minute where
Humidity.
where that stuff matters. I'm talking about Spartan Race, which puts on DECA events, should be able to put on an event 8 times a year, and the times aren't that different, except for Denver. Don't go to Denver. That's really high altitude, right?
I'm saying North
Everywhere
Carolina
else,
is different.
what's that?
North Carolina was different.
Yeah.
That
No,
it
no.
wasn't
Air
altitude.
conditioning did not work. The air conditioning did not work. It wasn't because they're in Carolina.
Right.
They could have done it. They could have done it near my house. They could have done it in the hot. It's fucking hot here. But
Yeah.
it shouldn't be like, well,
It's
I
hot
can't
here.
do it. I can't do a deck in the summer because my time's gonna suck. It's they fucked up. That's what I'm saying. You seem to be making it seem like every year it's gonna be bad in the summer. No, this event they had high temperatures because the AC
Yes.
didn't work.
I guess
Yes.
I'm just implying that in the summertime, maybe you're rolling the dice on the heat conditions.
I don't
That's
think
all.
so. I don't think
I
you
think,
ever.
I mean, honestly,
I think it should never happen. This
do
should
your
have been.
pre-
This
Well, it
should
should never happen, and sled should move too. So
do your pre-production and make sure that your venue has sustainable AC that's going to maintain that throughout the whole thing. I mean, that's a standardization. There's like, I mean, if you went somewhere, if you went to the Wells Fargo Center in Philly and the AC was broken, they would shut that down. Nobody would play. I mean, they just played Chelsea and Flamengo a couple days ago, and 30 minutes into that, they got their 10-minute cooling break, right? Because it's hot. And we know that that heat and that exhaustion causes decreases in performance. We just know that. It's
No,
science.
no, I know, and that's what we're getting to with the sleds. But again, you're going to this nth degree, and I'm just saying this basic idea of that.
Have AC that works. Have a venue
somebody
that
should
works.
have turned the AC on. Yes, we can all agree.
That's all I was trying
Air
to get.
conditioning is amazing.
I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Yay.
That's all I was trying to get. Took us a
Okay.
long time to get there. So, Greg,
Yes, sir.
you've done some extensive research on this,
Yes.
and I want to know, in your professional opinion, which we'll get to. We're gonna do the second part first, as they say, of how you got to the kind of test that you run and all of that stuff. But let's do this part first, which is why didn't the sleds move in Chicago? The version that's not what they said, but what's actually so. Can we start there and then go back with all your research and what you've done to get there?
Yeah.
Because that's the first answer. They said it was the sleds. We think it's the sleds and the carpet. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
It's a combination.
so go. Now you can go.
Cool. It is. Well, I'm Greg Lutton. I am husband. I am husband to Imogen Cross. I run a training facility called Exergo Strong and Fit, and I develop assessment technology for Exergo Technologies, company I own. There. The issue that was presented was what's up with the sleds? Why did they not move? Why were some lanes, fluid and other lanes weren't? And not going into the research that I've done, but my speculation was just seeing it was ambient temperature, ambient humidity, the pile of the sleds, the pile of the carpet, and pile is the depth of the fibers in that carpet, and a combination of all those factors plus load. When you put load on a high pile carpet, it's going to sink or stay on top. The other thing is that turf that they had, the original turf that they used to use was commercial grade carpet. And if you've ever used commercial grade carpet in any commercial building and spill your coffee, it is meant to become sticky. So it has this kind of hydrophobic, sticky tackiness that when it gets wet, you don't slip. Because how many times have people spilled coffee at the water cooler? And if everybody slipped when they were wet, there would be a lawsuit and it wouldn't be good commercial carpet. So commercial carpet literally is designed to become stickier when wet. Now you take a venue like HYROX, it doesn't have the 3,000 people in it, and they do a test of these sleds on this turf. Nobody's there. The load's on there that hasn't sunk into ruts. And of course, it probably just skated across. And they were like, this is phenomenal. I don't know how they test it. I don't know if they use any kind of pulling mechanism to see how much force. We'll get to that because I did that. How much force, no matter how much load you put on it, what kind of force does it take to break cohesion? Because it's a physics problem. Gravity is pushing 9.8 meters a second into the ground. You put a load on top of that, that load's going into the ground. The horizontal force needs to be greater than that friction coefficient to get it to move. Once you get it moving, stay moving. Because when you stop, you got to push that again, and that's when people exert their energy. So when you see people, when it's fresh, perhaps there was an oily film on top of it. Every time, when you buy something from anywhere, it says wash before use. It's because it has manufacturing film and goop and oil on it. So the new turf, perhaps, slid. No humidity in there, slid. New turf, not a lot of load on it, slid. Now, once they started adding that, go through the Elite 15. Even Elite 15 were struggling. Did they use new turf? Did they use new sleds?
What is the difference in the old turf and the
The pile. So the old commercial carpet, I don't have specs on that, but the new one I think is 16 millimeters, right? So that's 16 millimeters that it's sticking up. That's 1.6 centimeter. Okay.
Matt,
So that's good.
yeah, I will just say, Matt, you could just tell it just felt spongier, right? Like
Yeah.
there's just a depth to it that there wasn't in the previous carpet.
So
Right.
what I'm trying to look at is the problem they thought they're solving, okay? And they have agreements with these companies, right? With Center,
Yes.
right? But the turf isn't in fact made by Center,
No, it's
correct?
generic. It's generic.
And they're just selling it through Center, just like where you buy the sleds and
Right.
the ropes or whatever else you buy from them.
Yep.
So
It's a branding of a product. So if you wanted to get the exact same turf, you can go to Turf Factory
it's
Direct.
just
The other
white
thing,
labeled.
yeah. But it's like there's a company in the United States called Turf Factory Direct. All of this stuff is coming from China anyway, or overseas. Maybe not China, but it's coming
I
from
told you
overseas.
guys we weren't going to deal with the turf from China. You got the
Yeah.
turf from China. So, Greg, before you're saying it wasn't a sports turf, it was just you can use this for your office building, and they were like, well, let's
It
just use it for turf.
it looked like commercial carpet rolls, like runners that you can get from Home Depot, Lowe's, any place like that. But the thing is they're all getting it from overseas. And if you go direct to the source, you can get, you can spec it. Like, we have a Spartan rig in our facility. That Spartan rig that we got, if we got it from an American distributor, it was going to cost $10,000. But instead, we went straight to the people that the company that we talked to were getting it from, and we got it for $4,000.
Right. So let me ask you this, because I know you did have some conversations with them, and your warnings were not heeded, as it were. So let's this is where I want to if I want to come at it from this angle of they launched this thing in Germany, hey, let's build a barn and do a cool event, right?
Yeah.
And what do you know? Tickets start selling like hotcakes. They never dreamed, even if they dreamed it, we're going to have to do air temperature, moisture, hundred thousands
Right.
of people,
Right.
closed space. At some point in the last year, though, they did. At some point in the last year, it was like, wait a minute, we've got this global sport. We're bragging on, we're banking on same courses everywhere, minus some deviation because it's like a marathon, blah blah blah. But
Right.
somewhere in there, they had to start thinking this way. I don't expect them to think it on day one. So, can you
So
tell me, kind of, you don't have to go through exact emails, but when you kind of started having these conversations with them, you giving them,
yeah.
hey, I'm a background, this is my background, my wife does your sport, and what
Right.
was their response?
Well, let's just back that up to the growth and development, because these are growing pains. Every sport has it. My company had it. You get to a point where the quality and repeatability is what we call it. Repeatability of that quality over and over. So, for instance, you have something and you want to replicate each of these events and standardize that no matter where you go, so that the athlete, so if someone in New York, well, let's not use New York because New York was outside. That threw a whole curveball to everybody because it was hot and everybody's times were like 4 minutes slower. But say you did the old Jersey one, the old Jersey HYROX from like 3 years ago. That was indoors. It was beautiful. You go to Dallas, indoors, beautiful. The same turf standard. Everyone kind of gets it, and you're kind of leveling that playing field. The thing is, and I understand this, it's how do you replicate and standardize this so that a time from one venue is the same from another without having any adjusted components, because you're controlling the ambient humidity. Well, you're controlling the ambient temperatures. You're controlling how many people go on it. I'm just not sure how many quality control steps they put into place, right? Because what we did is we went into our gym during the winter and we're like, okay, what are you actually pushing? How much force does it take? And we loaded our sled up. We have a Rogue sled with Rogue plates, and we loaded it up with the 4 plates and a topper, which is a 10-pound. By the way, I was a head judge of Elite 15. I was in Chicago one year, or no, in DC. I've been a head judge. I've moved all those plates. I always get stationed on sleds for whatever reason. So I know what it's like to load these things and put them on there and push them around. The thing that I saw, right, was no matter how much we put on that sled, once you broke that cohesion, the friction coefficient, right, it was only 20% of the load. So if you put on 100 pounds and once you break it, you have to push more than 100, but once you break it, it only requires 20% of 100 pounds, which is 20 pounds, to push. So we were like, okay, let's put more on there. We went all the way up to 1,000 pounds. And once you broke that sled, it only took 200 pounds to keep moving it. And so we were like, that's kind of interesting, because what's their sled? It's like 4 plates and a topper. So that's 45, 90, 180 plus 10. That's 190 plus whatever the sled is. It's really not that much.
It's
But
225, I thought.
yeah, but I'm saying with the sled, add it all together. But what was interesting is the humidity. We're here in Virginia, and it's humid right now. When I put 135 pounds on there, for some people, it's crippling. They can't even move it, and it's because we have, ready, from Turf Factory Direct, we have 12 millimeter pile, right? So when you put it on there, it sinks a little bit, but not a lot. Take 16 millimeter. That's 4 more millimeters. That's 4 more millimeters for that turf to sink into, and that increases the friction coefficient, right? So back years ago, when we did these tests, we were like, hey, let's send this to you so you can review it. Cool, thanks. I was like, okay, what about the data that we sent you? Cool, thanks. We have top men working on it.
So that was
Top
the response
men.
you got from HYROX was, we have top men.
Okay, we have our scientists looking into this. We have our sports science group, and I was like, who? Like, can I work with them? Can I help you? Because we're the ones that are out here training people. And my philosophy, I mean, I've been a strength coach. I've coached high school. I've coached college. I coach middle school kids and high school kids now, because once you get to like college and beyond, they're kind of like already set. You know what I mean? And so I was the Virginia State Director of the National High School Strength and Conditioning Association for 3 years. That's a big mouthful to say that, but having done that, I've done my science, I've done my research, and I'm looking at it going, how are you adjusting for this? Because our sleds don't change. Our sleds have never been on metal. They've never been on rubber. They've never been, they're the Rogue sled. They don't even have, we didn't even put the, what is it? The high density polyethylene boards that they send to you so you could do it on cement. We didn't even put
So
that on
tell
there.
me, so just
Um,
so Greg, let's assume every region has one or two trucks, right? And that's the other thing. These things are getting moved. It's not like your typical gym where they just
right,
live there, right? They're getting moved, they're getting schlepped around,
right.
they're getting banged. What would the solution be to get as close as we could? Because listen, we're not gonna. I don't expect them to say let's adjust for wind quality per region, right? But what could we get to get
Right,
as
right, right.
close as a similar experience as possible? What are they not doing that you would suggest they do? And is it expensive? Is it a pain in the ass? What closes the gap for this?
So I bought, and it's in the gym. I bought one of those like little two-prong humidity testers for different materials like wood, cement, concrete, and I've been sticking it in our turf to see what the relative humidity of the turf is. And then I'm like, that's my next test, is to kind of like build a standard operating procedure here so that we could figure out like, okay, what's the goal here? Because the effort that people are putting into this, if you give someone a standard weight, and I saw some of our athletes from our gym literally on that sled and it didn't move. I mean, even Emmy, like I have video of her just being like WTF because it just didn't go anywhere. And I mean, it sucked the life out of her. And so I go, is there a way to measure the humidity of the turf to determine whether or not it was put away wet? I think they should also put a tag on there that says how many times they've used this, right? So, like, I hate, it's plastic, but I hate saying that you could only use it like 3 or 4 times before it gets tired. But if you use it 3 or 4 times and it gets broken in, is that lane going to be faster than somebody else's lane that's brand new? I'm not sure. So there has to be some kind of checklist here of how many times has this been turf been used? What's the humidity of it? Is this pile the right height? But I think the most important thing is attaching something. And I thought they said they did this, but I'm not sure if they do because they didn't give me any of that feedback. But attaching some kind of device like a crane scale to measure what that tension is to get it to move. Because if you pull on one sled and it says 100 pounds to get it to move, you put 100 pounds on it takes 100 pounds to move it, and then it's only 20 pounds to keep it moving. And then you go to the next one with the same 100 pounds and you pull on it and it says 150, then you have to adjust that weight until you get the pulling at this equal.
So are you suggesting that then different lanes would have different weight on it, and they would say just trust us, it's all the same? Wait, Cheryl, go ahead.
Well, that's my question is that from lane to lane, you're saying this can be different because that was our experience,
Yes,
right?
it was
Our
different.
experience in
It was
Chicago
different.
is the lanes were different. And so are you implying that the humidity of each lane is different, or is it a sled issue? Like we don't know.
So I honestly don't know. I mean, I would love to take what was in Chicago and run those tests, but I know that that's not going to happen. So we have to recreate something. And so I know that we can buy that turf. I've asked the boss if we can buy like a bunch of turf and then do stuff to it. Like, this is a brand new one, and then take one and have like just drive over it a whole bunch, take one, spray some water on it, and find different humidity levels to understand what the
Well,
heck
we
is
can't have
going
a
on
sport where we have
with this
different.
turf.
They can't do that though. There's no way we can have different weights in every lane.
Well, you could
Right. So
if you had that measure, then it could be certified the same, even though it didn't look the same.
Except now you've got to teach your
right.
audience that they're going to have a different one, and the judge not to fuck it up. And you see what I'm saying? You're creating a lot of
Oh
room
yeah,
to have it be.
I know. I don't know how to standardize that other than to say new turf every single time.
But new
And
turf
that's
wouldn't be.
not an option.
But okay. But how about this?
I mean, that would be
If the
so wasteful.
if it would be wasteful, and some lanes, this lane down here wasn't as good as this lane down here. You're saying it wouldn't that could have all been brand new, but you're saying it's different in different
Right.
parts of it.
I mean, here's the thing, and I don't know who posted that video, so I can't cite that, but I could definitely tell you there was a gentleman pushing it, and he was like, "This sucks," and so he ran over to another lane, pushed it, and it flew. And then he got a female athlete to do the same thing. She couldn't even move it, and she pushed the other one, and it flew. So there's a discrepancy right there, and they were all loaded the same. And I mean, I wasn't like, you know me, I will get behind the scenes. I mean, I got told I couldn't even give Emmy her towel after the end of the race. I got kicked out of the finish zone, and I was like, okay, cool, that's neat. So I can't really go in there and like flip a sled up and be like, oh, what is the, like, what does the bottom of these sleds look like? I mean, they even said that you couldn't take pictures of the
Well,
turf.
no, that was only the Elite 15.
At
That was
some
only the
point.
Elite 15. They couldn't take pictures while they were looking at it for the Elite 15 because they were the first to see it.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing. Don't bring to market or to a high level competition untested
But we tested
tech.
it. We tested
And
it in
then,
our, in our whatever. I mean, that was their answer. But it's like, yeah, you didn't. No, we all said don't do this at the World Champs. The best thing that could have happened at the World Champs is that we got the same result we always did. The worst is what would happen, which is that times were all over the place.
right.
And so they what are they going to do, I guess, is the question. Because what about this? Anthony was always saying just put runners on the sleds and that makes them all equal. Does that ring true?
So if you put like the high density polyethylene skids, because they make those, you can put them on there. But that's gonna change the friction coefficient, right? And then you're gonna have someone who puts like 600 pounds on it, and it's gonna move easy. It's gonna move easy. You still gotta push the 600 pounds, but once you do that, it's continuing to move it across the floor. I mean, that's basic
Right, but
biomechanics. It's a
you
physics
still
problem.
redline and you do have to stop.
Right.
So it's not like
Right. Now,
if
I
you had a
mean,
machine
so you
that
know
could
those
constantly push at that pressure, yes, but your body isn't going to do that.
right. So there are things that have, here's a big word, isokinetic
Sure.
dynamometers. Those things have it's like you can do knee flexion and whatnot, and you can set it, but you could set some kind of linear pull device that had a resistance, like a drag on your fishing rod, right? You could set how many pounds of tension that is. If they wanted to do something that was more mechanical and just have people pull a rope, do you remember the Marpo? Did you ever hear that Marpo rope pulling machine? Yeah, that's a throwback to San Jose State College. A guy designed that because some golf kid climbed the rope, fell and broke his leg, and then couldn't compete in his golf championship. So they were like, how can you make rope climbing safer? And they made this pull, and it has a clutch in it. And so every time you pull it, it's the same tension, high, medium, and low. And it was the coolest thing ever. So if they wanted to do a 50-meter sled pull that was fixed and standardized, you could just have a rope thing and pull on it, right? The sled push, I'm not really sure how you could get around that, because even the tanks at DECA, if you have polished concrete, those things slide. It goes, or the tire pressure. I mean, no joke. Every time we run a DECA in our facility, I'm in there. This is going to sound crazy, but I'm like NASCAR dad. I've got like the tire gauge. Oh, yeah, I'm doing fireworks because my thumb's up. Sorry. Wow. That's poignant right there. But every time I'm like testing those tires because they'll banana. And so how do you standardize that? Yes, that thing.
It's only
That doesn't
it's
look
only
very
4,000.
good.
It's only 4,000. 42.95 free shipping.
Yes. I don't know how to standardize it. I mean, like, I go back to Spartan Race. Ready? When they used to do the sled drag, you had to like you had to pull it with the chain, and then you had to go to the other side and grab it with a handle and run it back. I can't tell you how many times. I think it was Lake Tahoe at the top of the mountain, like 2015. Mine got stuck because of the mud, and it got stuck on a rock, and I couldn't get it to come over, and they were like, oh, you got to pull it. And I was like, dude, it's not going anywhere. But they were like, change lanes. I was like, okay. So you could change lanes. Now, was I not strong enough to pull it? No, it was stuck against a rock.
You didn't have to do burpees though?
No, they were. I was in open. This is like, it was either elite or open back then. It's 2015, so it was just have fun. But I don't know what the solution to that is without like over sciencing it. And Occam's razor, the most simplest thing, is the answer. And then I go back to what my dad used to say: "Kiss, keep it simple, stupid." So like, there has to be something that makes it easier to standardize this, right? And maybe it's a yoke carry, right? Like, yeah,
I don't think they're
get into
not
like,
changing these stations. Not for at least a few more years.
I know. But you go look at like what is it? Like the strongest man in the world, right? They're pulling a fire truck. It has rolling resistance.
I thought
So
I
maybe
thought the
there's some.
sled when Spartan started, when Deca started, I thought what somebody said to me, which made sense, was how are you going to use a training tool which pushes back on your own resistance as a racing tool? And I was like, that's a great point.
Right.
But nobody seems to have a
Yeah.
problem with the Spartan sleds, even though they even
No.
changing brands other than a screw up at Worlds 2 years ago. So do you think
Yeah.
that's a smart way to do it, to use Zebex or whatever the other one is?
Torque.
Cheryl, what do you think? You've done a fair bit of
I
Deca
mean,
sleds.
I think the reason why people don't complain about Deca sleds is because it is across the board fair. I don't think that we get a bad lane.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, look, my sled in my Deca Strong in Worlds this year, it didn't move. Like I don't think it was the same sled as the girl next to me, but it wasn't that divergent.
But is there a trick, Greg? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's certain things that, like, if you only push a little bit at a time, it goes further than if you just push it like that. Like, can you out science that kind of sled? So like I could
So that magnetic resistance, is actually really cool because it's two magnets between a plate, and that standardization, like, I mean, that's science that you can't mess with. Like that's very well studied. I forget it's an effect. It's an effect between the two poles of the magnets on that plate. And as you move, it's like planetary rotation.
It's just physics.
You're not messing with that. It's just
Right.
physics, right? And as
But
the magnet gets
how is
closer,
that fair for a larger bodied person?
well, now you're touching into a realm that I love, which is called relative strength versus absolute
Okay.
strength, right? And this is another study that I have done. I've published 4 papers on this, and it's all about your strength to mass ratio. There's also, like, because in high level sports science, sports performance, everybody's like, how much power, how much can you jump, all the, like these high level metrics. But what if you're starting? What if you're starting as an athlete and you can't perform those things, or they're all low? And it comes down to, we all know force equals mass times acceleration.
F equals
All of it.
M squared A or something?
F equals M
Times
times A. F
I'm
equals
so
MA.
close.
Your strength to mass ratio is so simple. It's literally do an isometric mid-thigh pull. If people don't know what that is, look it up. I sell a device that measures it for like super cheap.
I can't.
And it gives you
I'm
these
going to
great
buy a
numbers.
Marpo pull machine. I just spent my last $4,000 on that. I can't buy your
No,
fakakta things
don't buy
you
that.
got.
I'll send it to you. You can play with it. But the thing is it takes, I mean, I just did youth assessments today. And we went to a Spartan race and we measured people before the Spartan race to see what their strength to mass ratio was. They went and did the Spartan West Virginia race. And then all the elite ladies came back and we measured them after to see what the decrement between what their strength was before, what their strength was after, and who won it. And when she won it, she could pull 2.35 times her body mass. So if she's 100 pounds, she's pulling 235 pounds, right? And nobody else had that strength to mass ratio,
Okay.
that high of a ratio. And she won. And it was like, all right, so there's proof there. Higher strength to mass ratio equals more race performance.
So can us.
You also have to look.
But
where I'm going with this,
weakling pushes a sled next to Kevin Gregory. Is it fair? The same Zebex sled set to setting 4 or whatever. Is it fair?
So that's like if I give you a 100-pound sled, okay, and a 50-pound person pushes it, that sled is 2 times their body mass. That inherently is going to be harder for them. If their strength is at 100, it's going to be a 1-to-1. They can push it, right? Now, if a 100-pound person goes to push that sled and it's 100 pounds, that's a 1-to-1 strength to mass ratio, but they may have a 3-to-1 strength to mass ratio. They could exert that amount of force. So you have to look at like absolute strength. I mean, this is
what I'm asking is the resistance part making it fair? That's what I'm asking.
Right. And so I think it comes down to this is where that leveling happens. And this happens in Olympic weightlifting, right? If you lift 100 kilos and the person next to you is, they're 75 kilos and they lift, 100 kilos and they're lighter than you, they win because they have a higher strength to mass rate, or they have
You're still not
lower
answering my
body
question.
mass.
I'm asking you about the
No,
technology.
but what I'm saying is they lifted that weight. So that weight, 100 kilos is 100 kilos. But if they tie, the person with the least amount of weight wins. So if you have someone where you say you got to push this 100-pound sled, and someone's 5'3" and they can't push it, but someone's 6'4" and they can push it, you've standardized that load as an absolute strength factor, and that's something that's where it gets very questionable, because is that fair? Is it fair to have
Cheryl, what am I
someone
trying to ask
pushing
that he is
something?
definitely not answering?
So I think I know what he's trying to answer for what you're asking.
Okay. Either way you want to come around it,
Look,
Cheryl.
I
I know
think
you.
there's a reason
Well,
why
connect the dots
there's a
for us.
reason why women in my age group compete with each other. And I don't compete with Kevin Gregory because he's big
Right.
and he's a monster, and he's going to be able to naturally move more weight than I'm going to be able to move. And that those magnetic resistance are just like anything else, where it's going to push back, and depending on how strong you are, you're going to be able to push it better.
But it's
than
not like
somebody who
anything
isn't.
else. A regular sled doesn't push against me any more than gravity does. This thing is pushing against me.
It's
Depending on how strong
but
I'm
it's not
pushing
actually
on
pushing. It's not actually
It's
pushing, though.
resisting.
It's creating
It's
resistance.
resisting.
It's just
Right.
Yes.
resisting. It's resisting.
And
And
HYROX
so it's
sleds
like an air
resist
bike.
as well.
What's that?
Yes.
HYROX sleds resist as well. Both sleds and tanks resist.
But the HYROX sled doesn't resist based on how hard I'm pushing it. The HYROX sled, it's a one-way scenario. You're telling me the Hybex sled, the Zbex sled, is pushing back against me.
So I don't know about that Zbex sled.
that's what
we have the tank.
That's what I'm
We have
asking. The
old
torque tank, the Zbex, whatever they are, the thing that's designed.
Yeah, the torque.
I'm questioning the science behind it, and if it's as fair as a regular sled. That's what I'm asking.
So again, this is where what surface you have it on
I'm gonna
matters.
ask ChatGPT, okay? Just because I like ChatGPT so much.
Go ahead.
And this is
Go
gonna be
ahead.
a fun exercise. Are you ready?
Yeah.
My
Let's go.
ChatGPT now
I don't
talks
know.
to me. All right, so just stand by. Just give me a
Oh
second.
no.
I type things when I'm driving. I type things. What's the technical term? What's the technical term for the Zbex sled?
Be magnetic resistance, right? A magnetic resistance.
And what's this? Okay. If I have a fitness competition and I'm using regular sleds, how can I be sure that's just as fair as using sleds that have magnetic resistance, like a what's it called?
Zbex
Like
or
a Zbex sled.
With regular sleds can vary based on the surface, the friction, or even the condition of the sled. With magnetic resistance, you're getting a much more consistent and predictable resistance level. So if you're aiming for fairness, you might want to ensure that the surface is as uniform as possible and that all the sleds are in similar condition. That way you can at least minimize any variables.
Ladies and gentlemen, AI, all right? This is my AI. This is Merlin. He's a genius. We didn't even tell him how fucked up the sleds were at HYROX Chicago, and he answered it properly.
Well, he just summarized what Greg was saying, right? It's the exact same thing.
Yes.
Right, but here's what I'm asking. The part that you missed was how even the sled that's based on resistance, is it just as fair for a larger human being to push it next to the smaller person that pushes it, or does the magnetic resistance change based on how big the person is? I know that's not what we wanted to ask, but it's close enough.
So with magnetic resistance, like on a Zbex sled, the resistance is usually pretty consistent regardless of the person's size, relying on friction or weight. That means a larger person and a smaller person would face the same level of resistance. Of course, a larger person might have more strength to push it, but the resistance itself doesn't really change based on the pusher's size.
Thanks, Merlin.
Ask this.
Okay, go ahead.
Ask if a relative strength ratio between two people plays a difference in being able to push a magnetic resistance sled.
That's a great question. The relative strength ratio definitely plays a role. Even magnetic resistance is consistent. A person with greater strength or better strength to weight ratio is naturally going to find it a bit easier to push. So even if the resistance doesn't change, the individual's strength level will definitely impact how easy or challenging it feels.
Okay, so can I say something?
Do you want to say something or ask something?
No, I don't want to ask something.
Okay.
It sounds to me, Matt, that if you're more fit, you're going to win.
That's what I've been saying.
If you're stronger than your body weight, you're going to win.
I
Go
just
figure.
I just wanted to understand the science, and hearing honestly, Greg, he did
Yeah.
say the same thing you did. It was just
Mhm.
hearing it that third or fourth time that that took it for me.
Yeah. Oh.
So that
I'm an academic writer sometimes, and when I speak, I feel like I get lost in
right.
the weeds. So that's my
But
bad. But let me just tell you, let me just add this little anecdote. I asked if we could do the same test that we did at Spartan, West Virginia. I asked for a table at HYROX D.
because
Top
be-
men.
I think
Top
they
men.
don't want to know yet, right? I think they may be.
well, interesting. So this
Yeah.
idea came
Yeah.
up. This idea came up, Greg, that we talked about where they were refusing help, and I always say you never turn down a volunteer at any level, whether they're going to clean toilets or be your highest data person. Like, don't say no to free help, right? You can always send them away if they're not good.
Right.
And so Cheryl thought, or maybe it was you, Cheryl, or somebody thought, like, well, maybe it's this form of control they have. So do you think that's what it is? Do you think it's like it's not just like ego and hubris, it's more just like we want to control the science, and so we can't let a non-employee into our special club of data? Like, what do you think? Because
That's
Greg, obviously you're a little pissed, and I would be too, right? You're doing this, you want to help the sport,
I mean,
but what do you think
to
it
help
is?
the athletes. Here's the thing. Everything should be about the athlete. It should not be about your shareholders. It should not be about your marketing budget. It should not be about the whatever distribution deals you're doing. I saw that happen with Spartan, and it wasn't about the athletes. Robert Killian and I are good friends. I've like babysat his kids. And he was so upset because they didn't get paid. People didn't get paid to do stuff. Some of the athletes still, for whatever, Spartan, HYROX, they all seem to have this issue of not being paid on time. And I'm not sure if that's true. That's hearsay. But the thing is I see a consistent thing where these companies and these fitness companies, and they're fitness companies. They're not sports companies. They're fitness companies that are branding and marketing and generating revenue to push out training and whatnot to all these different people. That you have to look at the athletes first, and you have to look at the people that are coming here to compete. And when you have all of that noise that happened post Chicago and it was all negative, that's a black eye. That's a black eye on them, especially after they just had the Athlete Tech Summit in New York, where they were like featured as, the biggest booming thing of 2025. And when you try to control the narrative in that regard, make it transparent, be open, ask for help from all these other people to help build it, to standardize it, to make it better. And when you say no to this stuff, it makes me wonder, what else are you hiding? What else is not being done? What else are you not thinking about? Because if you're just thinking about growth and revenue projections and return of investment and this, that, and the other thing, you're forgetting about the people who built that sport in the first place, the athlete.
I mean, clearly, well, I'll ask you, do you think they're doing a better job than Spartan?
I think they're making some of the same mistakes because I've
I,
seen them.
I think they're leaps and bounds. I think they're better business people, but they
Yes.
are starting to make some of the same mistakes.
And everybody does. And there's this really cool chart where it's like when you start a business, you go up and you reach this kind of moment, and then it kind of plateaus and everybody goes, dang, we really need to like keep this growth factor going. But it's like, are you happy where you are? Are you providing a decent quality product that you can saturate and work out the kinks and then say, okay, maybe we trend down a little bit? That's okay. But to shareholders, it's not, right? It's
Right,
not okay to
but
do
they're not
that.
a publicly traded company. They have
No, I know
investment
that, but
from
but there are people that are financially invested in them to see them grow. So they're, whether it's some kind of, angel funding, whatnot, because eventually they probably will go public, like Peloton and those companies. They may see it if they get enough revenue behind it. But the thing is to get that trajectory to go back up, sometimes people cut corners. And when you cut those corners, who suffers? Not the people that are making the decisions. It's the people, it's the athlete. It's the people that are coming there because the prices have all gone up, right? And so if you look at the original price, and I'm telling you that's not adjusted to inflation, the prices have gone up. It's just like Spartan races. I mean, when you look at doing a weekend of Spartan or HYROX, you're shelling out over $200 a race.
right. But I see Spartan certainly cut more corners than I've seen these guys. Like these guys,
Right.
I think
Right. Oh,
have done a pretty good job of both because the elite athletes always want more, and you're not doing enough for us. And then the age group athletes are always, you're not doing enough for us. We're the ones who give you the money, and like there's always some of that, right? But I think for the most part, they make adjustments. They do make pretty decent adjustments. This one is pretty big, and I said on the show last week or 2 weeks ago, the "we're sorry" should have been followed up with, "and here's a free race because we fucked your year." And so I was a little disappointed that didn't come as part of it because it was the world
that would be
champ.
that would be a huge loss of revenue, and they would be like,
Right, but it's one of those things where that's how you have lifetime customers. They go, "Oh my God." When you make good on something, it sometimes goes better than if it never messed up at all, because they see that you care, right? Like, the owner of the restaurant came out and did XYZ because this didn't happen. It's like, "Oh my God, I'll go to this place forever," right? So I
that's
think
why that's why I dropped my prices for our tech, and I made it a lifetime warranty, because here's the thing. I want you to be a customer for life.
right.
And the reason I want you to be a customer for life is because when you have longitudinal data, like long-term data on all these different people, you're adding to a knowledge base. You're standing on the shoulders of giants that came before you and putting data into a pool that other people can use to do their research. Now, that's my research side of it. But when it comes to sports performance, I look at the same thing and I go, how are you serving the athletes, and what are you doing to really highlight the key people that are driving the sport? And coming out and just being like, we're sorry. I'm pretty sure everybody was upset by that. And I think there's going to be questions of well, if I go to another one of these, am I going to get effed on a sled again and mess my time up? Because I can definitely tell you the signups between DECA and HYROX, when they run out of tickets, DECA, there's tons of people going to that now, and they're almost seeing possibly a resurgence of it because HYROX sells out, and then they're like, well, I can't go do anything, so I'm going to go do DECA.
Well, this is where I've been saying we've got so much room to grow, because in England, like, my feed every day is with another fitness race that's being launched or is about to launch. But anything else about the sleds before we let you go, Greg?
No, I mean, I just think they're going to have a hard time standardizing that without going to something that's more mechanical, more magnetic, or some kind of resistance-based thing, right? I'm not really sure how they're going to be able to do that. Or maybe they come up with their own. But I mean, in even those sleds, I hate that they're pneumatic tires for DECA. I think they should have been hard, rubber tires that don't flatten out. Like it's the difference between a furniture dolly and a regular pneumatic wheel dolly, right? If that pneumatic wheel goes out of air, your dolly flips or something. So I'm not really sure how they're going to be able to do that, but I think that there needs to be more investigation into turf pile, humidity control, and then the force required to be able to pull it, But I've got the data. I'm going to do more tests, and if people want it, they can have it. I'll post it. I'll give it to you, Matt, and you can do whatever you want with it. If you want to share it with the world, go ahead. Because if anyone's willing to listen to that, I'll be more than happy to share it and do stuff.
Well, you'll definitely hear some folks. When I mentioned it last week, people were like, "We can't wait to hear from the expert." So we'll probably have you back on.
I'm not an expert. I just like to tinker and figure stuff out, because let's be honest, when it comes to competitions, we are all looking to put in the least amount of effort for the most amount of reward. I say that lovingly, because that's literally what it is. There's a guy shorter. He used to run a 4-minute mile. He's from the 70s. But
Frank Shorter?
when they looked at his VO2 max, his VO2 max was so high that he would literally run at 70% and beat everybody. And people were like, why don't you try harder? And he's like, I don't have to. And that's what you want. So you should always train harder than you have to perform. And if you show up to an event and the event is harder than you've ever trained for, that's a problem, because that's there should be no surprises at that point. Not at a world championship, not at a national championship. You introduce stuff like that and changes at a regional, local race, and QA that, quality control it, user experience, and be like, let's collect some data on this and look at the difference between people's times. Because when we looked at the difference between pro old carpet and pro this carpet, 7 minutes on average.
Wow. All right, dude.
We'll leave you on that note.
Talk to you later. See you later.
Greg.
I looked at our notes. We have so much other stuff to get to, so I had to let him go, and I liked all that stuff. But Clayton sent me a note though that said, "My back is jacked up today. How are you feeling? I may not be paralyzed now." So we're both struggling. We're on the struggle bus after doing our Deadly Strong.
Go figure that you suffer after doing something you didn't actually train for.
that would be the case. Well,
Yeah.
funny enough, Clayton's been in the gym a lot more than I have. Dude, I do so well. I'll be super consistent and then fall off, travel, and that messes me up, and then that's my excuse. Like, I brought clothes to run every day in Chicago, right? I'm like, I'm gonna run. I'll bring 3 sets of clothes, because if I only win one and then I want to run the second day, I sweat too bad.
You
And
didn't
then
run.
and then every day I woke up, I would do some work, and then I had a couple meetings, and I'm like, okay, I can run and maybe I can nap. And then the one time I was going to do it, that last day, something happened. I forgot what it was. Oh, that last day was like, oh, the relays changed. Like, literally, when I was like sitting in my room, like thinking about going to run, it was like, nope, you got to do. So anyway, that's my excuse. So yeah, we're both in pain. So, um, I want to talk a little bit about, I want to read this email, because it talks about the show and it talks about DECA. So I want to read this.
Okay.
Is this the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really enjoy listening to your podcast. I like that. Start from there.
Well, it says, sorry, Matt, I replied emailing your website rather than Instagram. Hang on. Zep just gave me a hint. Zep just said, your average weekly readiness score was in the 70s. I can help you with a brief routine to improve your sleep, flexibility, or mental health. Would you like to see one? Please tell me if you want a sleep routine, flexibility routine, and which body part, or mental health routine.
Wow.
That's my Zep Aura Premium, because one of the guys I met that works at Zep wanted me to have this thing. But by the way, how impressed were you with my Chat GPT though?
I'm pretty impressed, because honestly, I was conceptualizing what Greg was saying, but your Chat GPT was much more efficient in saying the exact same thing. So I thought it was a really nice way to kind of layer, like, we got the truth from two angles, and I like that a lot.
But you can see why I trust ChatGPT so much.
Yes.
Because if I had
There
said,
have been studies that the more we use ChatGPT, the less our brains work. So just a little warning there.
well, next week they'll tell you that that's not true, and they'll tell you the
Okay.
opposite. So
Okay.
I'm not worried about that. It can be too Pollyannish. It can be too positive because it's designed to agree with you. So I've headed that off, and I often ask it for an opposing view. Like, often, I'm like, hey, let's look at this from the other side, because I do
Well,
think that can distort your thinking.
and your question was open-ended enough that you couldn't lead it. Does that make sense? Like,
No, I'm
it
saying that
really
if I say, if I'm like, I'm saying, if you talk to it like I'm having an argument with my boss or my loved one or whatever, it's gonna like support you to be right in every way. See what I'm
yeah,
saying?
you're
But
the best. Yeah.
but like, if you noticed, I also completely rambled. Like, I didn't even really ask it like a very black and white. I was very rambly, but it figured it out. So
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable answer. Yeah, for sure.
it's very impressive.
Okay. Back to the email.
Here's what I said in my initial comment and a quick follow-up. I really enjoy listening to your podcast. By the way, great way to start for me to read your comments.
Oh, every time.
I specifically asked, this was not meant to be read, but I asked, please keep covering DECA as it is more accessible to most people. I was one of many who was recently shut out of HYROX Toronto. I wish the DECA would not make unforced errors.
Good term, I thought.
I am still waiting for first place age group medals from last summer's events in Philadelphia and Fort Wayne. Customer support says they are coming once received from the third-party supplier. I suggested they find a new third-party supplier.
For sure.
To his credit, Yancey has personally reached out to me and tried to help. We raced for the experience, not the medals, but it's still annoying not to receive them, and not paying elite athletes for their podium finishes is obviously worse. All the best. So this is kind of, I think, the difference I was trying to explain, that I don't think HYROX makes nearly as many unforced errors at this stage of the game.
So I have a term that I talk about when, like, I've been helping to renovate our gym here at the sports club, and I've talked to the managers about how people care the most about the things they touch, right? So if we need really good hooks, so if you put your bag on a hook, it's going to work. It's not going to fall apart. The stuff that it needs to feel sturdy. Like, you want to have quality stuff be the stuff that people interact with. And I think HYROX has figured that out, right? The stuff we touch, they really do a good job with. Even just the whole World Champs experience of going in the registration, and they had the pre-made package ready for me. Here you go, Mrs. Snow, right? It had my customized shirt, and it's the right size. And all that stuff. And DECA keeps just like dropping the ball. We get there to world champs last year and they're like, well, we don't really have shirts for you yet. There's this big pile of shirts and all of them are extra large, or, I still don't have my trophies from the world championship that I won. Like there are those things that are the direct interaction that we're supposed to get that they keep dropping the ball on. And it wouldn't take much to just tweak that a little bit. And I think we would all stop complaining.
Well, again, as much as we don't want to say so, DECA is a Spartan company, and Spartan having medal or t-shirt issues went from once in a while to almost all of the time.
Yeah. It's not like they should be surprised anymore that this is happening.
Well, I'm saying that anybody could give a pass on, gee whiz, the boat from China was slow and we hate it for you guys and we'll mail it as soon as we get it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that happens all the time at Spartan.
Right. Like
all the time.
Yeah. At some point you quit apologizing because
it's like you're a global company. You should probably have t-shirts and medals figured out. You're a global events company.
Right. And you've had world champs planned for a year now. Right. Like
right. And you do 50 Spartan races a year, and you do, however many DECA gym events. Like, it's a big order. You make the order, they get delivered, again, like other companies can do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I remember once my Ragnar medal was wrong, and I think, a week later we all got it in the mail. You know what I mean? Like, it was like just handled. They just overnight it. They did whatever it took.
Right.
So the unforced errors, this is where I give HYROX a lot of credit. I think more than a lot of people even. Like, I think Rich and I used to argue a lot. Like, when they would make some kind of bad sport decisions, he'd be like, oh, this is just like Spartan. And I'm like, no, they're not even close. They're so far ahead of the game in terms of, because I think, of course, they're a for-profit company. And I think you do have to figure out how to do both, right? Like, be profitable and serve your customer, right? Like, they're not mutually exclusive. And I think they do a pretty good job. I think Chicago was a pretty bad mess up, one that people aren't going to forget. But I think they deliver on most of the things that they promised they're going to deliver on.
That being said, the conversation we just had with Greg, where he was finishing up saying that it was a black eye on HYROX, what happened, and that you were talking about how they should make some reparations. They should send us a free race code. They should do something like that. All I was thinking while you guys were talking about that was, I don't think HYROX gives a flying flip if I show up again. I don't think they care at all.
You really don't?
I don't think they care. Look, I think they feel really bad that they were embarrassed by the sleds. But as an athlete, I don't really think they care that I'm there. But so Janet Goopser, we were reading her thing last week, and now we read this email, and both of them talk about how if there's a problem, Yancey will jump through hoops to help.
But that's not good.
All I'm saying is that as an athlete, I feel like DECA cares that I'm there. And I don't think HYROX does. I think HYROX is so big.
Right. Okay, Cheryl, let's take it one step further. Okay. Let's imagine a world in which you're single. Okay. And you're young.
Let's go.
And you have a boyfriend who never shows up on time and forgets things that are important to you. And he sure does apologize every time. And he sure does go out of his way to apologize every time. At what point do you go, well, he must care because he sure does feel bad and apologize for it? Or does he? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And I think that's why the things we touch, like, it makes a big difference. And I don't think that DECA is ever going to give us the kind of experience that HYROX does. And I think that's why it's always the default. Look what Greg just said. People can't get into Toronto, so they're going to go to DECA, right? We can't get into HYROX, so we're going to go to DECA. Like, DECA is always going to be second tier because, we want a date for Friday night, so we might as well go with that guy, right? Even though we would prefer the other guy, right? But he's busy. So,
dude, I have a friend that shall remain nameless who's recently divorced, and he's talked about the dating pool. And he can't, like, who he's matching with is like, he knows he's not a 10, right? But who he's matching with is like not even close to what he wants. And so then I saw this article about how dating apps have completely fucked up the dating pool, and people used to sort of meet their own level men and women when they went out because you had to see people and you knew who you accepted and were rejected by. But with
Mhm.
the apps, like a woman who's a 3 has basically all the same choices as someone who has a 10. And so they try to be equally as picky, and it's
Mm.
completely fucked it up. There's all these studies done about it because then I kept seeing more articles about it. It's fascinating.
We need a HYROX dating site. Somebody's
We,
got to come up with that.
we definitely
That's
do
what the
not.
cruise is going to be.
Somebody said, "Oh, they should do that." I'm like, I don't think you need to do that. Just put HYROX in your interests. I don't think it's that hard. But getting back to what I'm saying is, Yancey driving to my house personally to solve the problem doesn't mean this is a company that I'm happy to give my money to.
It's frustrating to have the problems for sure. And it just never feels like a top tier experience. I go to DECAs, they're so fun. It is such a fun race. I don't expect a top tier experience there. I just want to see my friends.
Yeah, and again, like you and I have talked about, they could be filling this role of like the entry point event. And boy, that HYROX is sure scary. But this one doesn't seem to have near as much running, and
Not as heavy,
it's
right?
not as heavy, it's not as what's the word?
Intimidating.
Overwhelming,
Yeah.
all those things. But unfortunately, for all the reasons we talked about, they can't even scale past the 1,000 people that they're getting.
Yeah. There are a lot of problems. I don't even know if they're complex problems. I think that they're simple problems that could be solved. And I think that it could really take off and they could really have a good time. And, I'm not sure who would be available to help them know what to do about that. And they don't seem open to changing anything.
Right.
So it's unfortunate.
Right. And again, Yancey solving everybody's problems is not a good thing.
No, that just means that we're so small that he can try,
No, it means that he can't, you don't, the same reason we didn't want him to be the head judge, the same reason he shouldn't be sitting at registration, the same reason you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
top, he should be handling the top of the line problems and only stepping in when it's necessary. And the unfortunate part, because I love Yancey as we all do though, but the problem that I think Yancey has and that DECA has is that they think that's the kind of what's the word? That's the all right. All right. So I'll talk about this. Yancey always points out the time they take to like help the last person and help someone that's not healthy and how that's really what they're about. And he's always telling these personal stories. And it's like, yeah, but like HYROX does that too. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
they also help people who have disabilities, who are really overweight. They get the whole crowd around that last athlete. Like they're not mutually exclusive. And I think somehow there's this what's the word? Through line or um I can't think of the word, but that's Yancey's kind of answer is like, no, we're not doing what they're doing, but we're doing all this amazing shit with all these small gyms and it's like, yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. You can put on really big, successful, exciting, life-changing, whatever events and take the time to care about people. They're not mutually exclusive. Now, someone might say, you say you think they don't care, and that's been your experience lately. You think HYROX doesn't care, and I can see how you might feel that way. But then you also said how you showed up with the beautiful hand package with your personal stuff did mean something.
Yes. So I do think they do just a nice job with the presentation, and that's what DEC is lacking. And I know that Yancey is afraid of intimidating people by too high of a production. He says that people get really overwhelmed and that sort of thing. I think there's a definite mid-range between a Red Bull start tunnel and that music and all that stuff that they do in HYROX and what DECA does, which are just these little sort of three-pronged tent things that they put out to make a track, and it's just this really, really kind of cardboardy sort of feel.
Do you think the person that's done 1,000 marathons versus the person doing their first marathon that shows up to Boston or the Peachtree Road Race or anything with high production value and goes, well, they put too much money into this race, I'm intimidated?
I think people who want to go to DECAFIT, especially people who haven't been to stuff like that before, would be thrilled with kind of a big show. I think that it would be really, really fun to have them feel like this was a big deal, what they were doing.
It is a lot. And when I saw it through my wife's eyes, I did see that. I told you that with her, like on the Sunday, she was like, whoa, because the music,
Right.
like that music is so
Yeah.
fucking loud, right? But again, that's not that's not a reason they're successful or not successful. You might just go do that and say, this is just too much for me. But just like people see a Spartan ad of a shirtless person and they show up and they're intimidated and scared, but then they realize that they're doing, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean Spartan should not have high production value start lines we can't have somebody yelling a rue at them. It's going to scare the newcomer. You know what I mean? They're not separate. And I think that's a fallacy. That's the word I was looking for earlier. That's a fallacy that Yancey has kind of talked himself into that. And we've had these kinds of conversations off the record. And I just think everybody's in their own orbit too much. HYROX is in their own, they don't listen, HYROX isn't listening to Greg, who wants to give them their information. And we're only hearing his side of the story. But when I talked to him off the record ahead of time, he did give me some names. I said, let's leave the names out of it for the show. Let's just say you talked to HYROX. Right. So who knows? Maybe they were busy that week. Maybe
I also think HYROX probably has 100 Gregs trying to contact them.
Exactly. Or they think, oh, this guy's a pain in the ass and his wife's race. Like, who knows? Like, we just heard his side. But I do think that that we've seen where both can do better. And the end of the day, this email was about, don't just talk about HYROX. So we're here to say, hey, we're not just going to talk about HYROX. I want to talk about way more events. We got to get some on this side of the pond. If you're listening to me, if you're within the sound of my voice and your event's in England right now and you want to come over to America, maybe I can help you. And if you're in America and you want to put some money behind something, launch a fitness racing event. We're printing money over here.
I want to see that hybrid. Is it the hybrid games that's over in London? I would love to see that come over here. I was just looking up the LT games. Did you see that? The Lifetime Fitness is kind of working on.
Oh, yes. Do you remember I brought this to you?
Okay.
You can't even remember because we do so much on this show.
Oh, you're just firing all cylinders at me all the time. I can't remember, but I think we are all very open to finding these things and to trying them out for sure. So, and
listen, in the old days, when you think about it, in the old days, it was, do I have a piece of property? Do I own a track or a campground or whatever? Let me put on an obstacle race. But that actually takes some work. Like, you got to dig and build weird shit. This is like, do you have a space? Like, do you have some sleds and a couple and some dumbbells?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Jason saw, the beauty Jason saw, weights, plates, and dumbbells in a track. Here we go. And he's already in 5 countries.
Elegant. It's an elegant solution. And I think,
right.
Yeah.
So it's out there and we're not at the top yet, but we're on the way. And it seemed like, the best time to start a business is yesterday. The next best time is tomorrow. So like, let's get on it, man.
Yes.
When I started HFM, I was really nervous. I was like, oh, I should have started this a year ago, because that's when Greg at Rocks Life started. That's when UK HX started. I'm like, oh, I'm too late. And then it's like, well, I might as well do it. And here we are. So start a race, people.
Well, and look, Deca has his foot in the door. Like, just fix a couple things. And we are so rooting for you.
And they do have the Spartan machine globally. So we're already seeing Spain do well. Portugal's next. I'm hearing we might see more in Europe. And I think when they do that, and the same way that HYROX started bigger over there, maybe that'll happen where Elite 15 athletes, because they don't have as many choices, like they start getting sold out, they start doing DECA. All of a sudden, DECA times start getting harder and it brings more. So maybe it'll happen. You and I have hope for all of it. Do you want to talk about this news I just announced for these dates?
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, we kind of could have guessed. The only thing that's off is they did say regionals become more of a last chance qualifier because the main people would have already qualified at the majors. And so each region's regional, which, by the way, somebody said, what if we call them the minors, the majors and the minors? What do you think of that?
No, I think regional's better. Minors sounds terrible.
Oh, I like minors.
I do not like the fact that only one person qualifies from those regionals. I think that's just mean.
But how else do we do it if we're doing 3, 3, and 3? That's 12, right?
Yes. I don't know. I just don't like it. You got all these Americans, like everybody from North America, South America, like everybody descending on this one race, and one person comes away. That's just a huge roll of the dice. Okay. That's a lot.
All right. Well, if Lauren races, right, and she's already in, and Meg races and she's already in, like, at least like you got to shoot for 4th, probably, right?
Yeah, maybe. It's just, that's tough. That's gonna be tough to see number 2 come through.
Well, we haven't talked about this yet. We haven't talked about the Phoenix Stadium, have we?
No, we haven't talked about any of this stuff because we just have had too much to talk about.
So in the press conference, which I participated in, I believe
And
I
this
asked the
is
first
Wednesday before World Championships.
right,
So that was like 100 years ago.
right. If you watch the live stream, I think I asked the first question. I was not intending to, but I got
Mm.
so excited when he talked about them that they talked about this concept of majors happening. And by the way, the elite doubles is happening the same races at the elite 15 singles, except that it will only be one time. There's no oh, wait
There's
a
no
minute.
double. They don't have two qualifying times that average out. They just have the one.
Wait a minute. Or is it just open? Can you just anybody show up to the pro doubles?
I think not for the majors.
Where is that? Should we pull up? You want to pull up the rules really quickly?
So okay, I'll pull up the rules.
Yeah, we'll be quiet for
All
a
right,
second.
so talk about Phoenix.
So Phoenix is going to be the big announcement that came out was that the majors were going to be at Phoenix. Sorry, the ones that were announced already were, I think I left one off. Oh no, the two that have already been announced. Hey, let me pull up the ones that have already been announced. I'm sorry. The two have been announced. One is in Hamburg, the date already exists, and one is in Melbourne, which the dates were already up for those two. So you got October and December, those two majors. And
Okay.
then the additional majors are one in Phoenix. That's the we get one, right? And then there's a second one in Europe this year, which is Warsaw. Last year we got two, right? And every year they move around apparently. And then these regionals would happen after the majors, and one winner comes from each one of those. So what did it
I
say
thought
about
Warsaw was the final. I thought that Warsaw was even after the regionals.
it is? And so that goes against what they said. What they said before was every regional will happen after. But I guess if there's only there should be four majors and four regionals. But there's three regionals?
There's 4 regionals.
DC, London, and Brisbane.
Right.
Hang on. So there's only 3 regionals then. There's 4 majors and 3 regionals.
Yes, correct.
So that last one won't have one after it.
Right.
So basically, Warsaw is going to be your last chance to get in. And
Right.
again, there'll probably be roll downs that other people do because that's in late April, and we assume that World Champs is in June, which we don't know yet.
Right. At least late May.
So what did you learn about the doubles?
Okay, so let me look up the doubles. I learned that doubles is basically the same qualification system as singles, but you just need one time within the last 365 days, and that they're going to have an Elite 15 race in those majors for those doubles teams, just like they're doing the singles.
So I like that. I guess everyone's going to go to Berlin.
Yeah, I mean, I think, or Hamburg, you mean?
Where was the fast course? The fast course was
Oh,
Berlin.
Berlin. Oh, I see what you're saying. I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is that I remember who was it that was posting that? Well, now it's time for me to start shopping for fast courses, and so especially if you just need the one time, you can really knock it out.
So something that got mentioned that he did say on the record, which if you listen to last week's podcast, so when I talked to him Wednesday, I quickly put up a video that just talked about the announcements of the majors, but something he later said in the interview was, quote unquote, one thing we're looking at, quotes, is, and they'd never acknowledged this before, that some courses wouldn't qualify. And I said, oh, you're really looking at that? He says, yes, we look at all these things. So are they going to make that announcement? I don't know. But I mean, Berlin just happened, so they have a few months before they have to declare that, before people say, oh
Right.
my God, I signed up for that one. But again, go back and listen to last week's show where he said it. If we had a producer, we could find it. We don't.
Are they implying that they would declare Berlin, for instance, not
Exactly.
not an time after the fact because of the times?
No.
Or would
They would have.
know
They would have. At this point, they would have to do it ahead of time. But
okay,
it's one of the, because he definitely he didn't say we're definitely going to do it. He said that subject got brought up, and then he said it's something we're looking at. So
yeah,
again, I think previously it's like all courses are the same. We don't change anything. So the fact they're willing to admit that, and again, because there's so many bloody races now a year, they're like,
right.
okay, we can do this. Where here are races which qualify you for majors or Elite 15
sort of like
races.
a Boston qualifying course for
and people are still going to be upset. People are still going to be mad, and this is the one closest to me, and why did you do this to me? And who knows what? I'm sure it'll upset people. But the other piece, go ahead.
Let me just say that I really wish, man, don't we hope Dave gets some internet. I told him that he needs to be around to win an argument with me on here, right? We haven't heard from him in a while. And this is right up his alley. Like, he's trying to take the times out of this and just have qualifying races around, at the very least, have qualifying races around where you race in that race and then that qualifies you for a major. I think, that would seems like a simpler solution than making a decision about each course.
Yeah. And what would make them change it? Because I forgot, there used to be a few. Like, I remember there was a Spain course that was really fast. I forget which one. This Asian race is a 1-lapper. Did you see that? Or is it a 2-lapper? It's round, though.
Right. So they're going to start getting so many different kinds of venues that you cannot deny that some are just going to be.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that is the distinguish between mass participation and sport. It's like, yeah, you want to mass participate? Go anywhere. You want to do our sport? Here's where you have to go. And I don't have a problem with that at all. You want to be in our sport? Here's our 75 other choices this year of the 83 races that you can race at. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I love that doubles is being made a bigger deal of. He also made mention of more money. He didn't say how much, but that was brought up in the conversation. So I think
for doubles,
yeah, it's all more money at majors. Like, it's all growth. It's all good stuff. And I think that's what they're probably waiting on. Maybe with the announcement of Worlds will be, hey, here's all the money. Here's the whole thing. The fact that they gave us all of this in advance is great. Someone on a comment said, CrossFit has never done this. They've never laid out a year in advance for it. I mean, we know Spartan doesn't, but we have low expectations. But even CrossFit, they said, has never put out, here's what the year is going to be this early.
We waited weeks last year to remember, before we knew it was going to be Chicago. I mean, we waited and everybody was speculating and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that we knew before we even competed this last time was really, really nice. Now, I will say, if they need to give the doubles more money. I just think if they're going to make it, this could be the year where people just focus on doubles, right? Where we could see that separation. And maybe Tim Vinish still is amazing and wins both, but wouldn't it be cool if we had some double specialists? I think that would be really fun to see.
If there's money in it, absolutely. And those people will still race singles, and they might even throw themselves in a regional for the heck of it. But yeah, it would be cool, I think, to say, like, oh, I think this is going to be my jam. I think it will bring out some more stars, if you will.
Okay, do we know who the Spaniards were in the men's race that passed everybody on the wall balls? That was ridiculous. The cadence that they were doing on those wall balls, and I don't even know their names. And that's what I want to see. I want to see these random people show up and just embarrass these other guys. That's what I want to see, is these really, really good teams who can hunt these people down and show us a good time.
Okay.
Do you have their names?
How do you feel about Roberto? If it's a G, should it be Jimeno, or is that only the J?
I think that's just J. I don't know what G is in Spanish. I didn't know they had
Roberto Jimeno and Luis Garcia Rubio. 50 minutes, 30 seconds, just 6 seconds behind Tim and Yannick.
Unbelievable. And they did it in the wall balls. They just cranked them out.
Yeah, Rylan and Ryan came in the wall balls second, I think, and they were 50 minutes, 56 seconds.
Yes.
We didn't talk about the doubles at all.
No, we haven't had time to talk about hardly anything, but I just think that's what I want to see in doubles, is I want to see these people who we don't even know who they are, because they're just a great team. There's a reason why they win.
I think, can you and I say that because the relay was the night before and all the racing in between, that by the time we got to the doubles, we were kind of out of gas, and that it's another reason they should have that on the second night, because all I was thinking about was getting on a plane the next day. And it was all too much for me, because I'm looking back now and I'm like, oh yeah, what about the women's race? What about the two Laurens? Like, we haven't talked about them at all. It's all got lost in the wash. And I think it would have been, don't you think?
I think that was quite a weekend. And you and I are not the only ones that are just still recovering. I just think it's a lot. And to try to pack it all in and to expect us to have the bandwidth to be able to handle it all, it was a wild ride for sure. And you're right. The doubles then just end up kind of falling by the wayside because we're just all so tired.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so much. And so we'd all put so much emotional energy into the relays.
Yes.
Right. Because of the DQ and the craziness with Hunter and all the rest of it.
Right. And last year, it did not feel like that. it felt like the relay was a nice cap to the weekend. We all stayed. We weren't staying for the after party, which I've seen some footage of that, and holy moly, that was something I didn't want to be at. And so to be able to have that still cap things off, I thought would have been really nice. And you're right, we would have then had a little more bandwidth, I think, for the doubles.
Listen,
They could just separate doubles and singles world champs at some point.
You mean like a different weekend?
Yeah.
Like the sport got so big so that you could have them on like different weekends, you mean? I guess it's possible. Yeah, listen, God bless you. If you are a younger person or an older person and you want to put on your best Dudge and woohoo party when the party starts at 9:30, not us. We are the early bedtime crew.
We had our sleep masks on. We were tucked in. It was great.
Manta, I reached out to Manta. They're like, we're not really doing Instagram deals. We're focusing more on YouTube. And I was like, what kind of numbers do I got to get for YouTube? And we're not there yet. So
Okay.
I'm like, look at all this crazy engagement on Instagram. But yeah, here's what I've learned though, Cheryl. I kind of only can do it in the morning when I wake up and like the sun's already up and or I nap. In the middle of the night, I kind of, it feels weird. I take it off sometimes. I got hot one night until I had to put the fan on my face. It was just weird. So I think it definitely, like this morning I did it. This morning I think I was up at 6 to go to the bathroom or something, and the light, we have this beautiful window in our bedroom and we see the birds and the cat, and it's beautiful, but it's also like in the summertime the light's up early. And so that's when I put it on, or definitely when I nap. But I'm not wearing it all night, like at night.
Right. I agree. For me, it's sort of the second half of the night kind of thing where the sun's going to be coming up. So I'll strap that on. I think it works better that way.
Yeah. But apparently we've sold a few. People love them, and we sold a few. So
yeah, good for us.
Go out and buy a Manta mask. They were like, hey, we can give you an affiliate code. I'm like, I don't want to mess with your affiliate code. Just people buy one, great. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to give me $1,000 per sale, then
that's a different story for sure.
So yeah, should we race in Phoenix, by the way, or is it going to be too hot according to your theory?
I don't think that it will be too hot in a stadium. I think they have that figured out. And I'm not even saying that there's any race that's too hot. I'm just saying that it does affect the outcome. And I want to try out a stadium race. I think that would be very interesting. Don't you think? Just to have that experience.
Well, another thing he says on this interview, which you absolutely should go listen to.
Sounds like it.
When he mentioned Phoenix Stadium, where they've had multiple Super Bowls and many college games.
Right.
That might have been where the Battle Frog Bowl was. I think it was. Fiesta. Hang on.
I don't know. That's a pretty big venue.
Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl took place. Hang on. If it took place in Phoenix, then that would be amazing. Yeah. University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. It used to be called State Farm Stadium. It is called State Farm Stadium.
Okay.
It used to be University of Phoenix Stadium. So yes, for OCR fans, this is the same place that the Battle Frog Bowl, Notre Dame versus Ohio State, was played in 2016. And I said, these have retractable roofs. And I said, will the roof be open or closed? And he said, closed. And I said, but will you still do outdoor events? And he said, 100%, definitely in Berlin, definitely in New York. So they are not afraid of a little rain, Cheryl. They will do outdoor events.
And I think we just need to prepare for that. I don't know if I'm up for spending that kind of money.
I don't think I am. Especially it's going to be that close to Worlds every year. I can't do it.
Right. It's just a whole different crowd that's going to do that. So that's great. But yes, I do want to try a stadium. I'm not hearing. Here's what's kind of frustrating is I feel like Phoenix in late February means no race in Vegas, right? Because Vegas was the questions
people were asking. That's the questions people were asking today.
Yes. Is how many cities is this taking out that we've had before? And I still am just so frustrated. Look, I got up in the middle of the night last week before I strapped on my Manta mask because I was just, I was frustrated with how the weekend had gone. And I'm thinking, well, what's my race schedule going to look like going forward? There are still only 3 races on the calendar for the United States. It's just so frustrating, right? Like just announce some.
Dallas went on sale today, though, or the announcement of Dallas going on sale went today.
The announcement of Dallas, which, look, pre-sale is going to go on Monday. They're saying that the general sale opens up Thursday. How many tickets are going to be available Thursday? 0, right? It's just, no, that's the thing is it's just getting, if they're not going to give us enough cities and we're just going to not even be able to get tickets, I just don't know what that's going to mean for the season.
I don't see Phoenix replacing Vegas because the whole point is to get more races in America. People are saying it's going to replace it, but isn't that the first time we were even in Vegas? It's 2022.
Since World Championships, yes, and it was an extremely successful weekend. I could see them doing maybe late January, early February Vegas, and then do the major in Phoenix. They
You
could
know,
do that.
speaking of Vegas, I saw this amazing post of Cheryl Snow looking out onto the horizon.
That's from near my home.
Did you acknowledge our friend out there, by the way?
No, I didn't.
Why did you?
I wanted to make sure he was in the picture though, and he is.
Okay, I thought you would acknowledge him somewhere in the comment.
I think that if I wasn't trying to be kind of pensive and thoughtful,
It was extremely pensive, extremely thoughtful.
Exactly. I couldn't really be cheerful and talk about our friend the Sphere in the same post. So I'll do that some other time.
And then I almost commented mentioning it as well. And then I was like, I'll just DM you instead because, you know, not everybody needs to know about our secret relationship with the Sphere.
Look, if I had not been so exhausted from the weekend, I would have got a shot with the flag in front of the Sphere, but we were just too tired. It was one of those big weekends again.
How many people can fit inside the Sphere? Should we do HYROX in the Sphere?
I don't think that the floor is big enough.
Right.
So yeah, that would be the problem. And from what I understand, it is so steep. If you have any kind of vertigo or something, you should never go in it.
Do you think U2 played the song Vertigo when they did their stay there, though?
I certainly hope they did.
Have you seen any concerts in there?
Of course not. I don't go anywhere near the Strip. I'm so boring. It's crowded.
What about when you come see your friend Matt at Circus Circus?
Look, I will come pick you up at Circus Circus, and if you ever want to go to the Sphere, I will take you to the Sphere.
Listen, I feel like, now that I think about it, I feel like I should have a separate website where I give travel tips because I've stayed at the Sable and I've stayed at Circus Circus, okay? And I can give you pros and cons of both ends of the financial spectrum.
For sure. I would love to hear that story someday.
Sure. Rich and I talked about the Sable on the Rich episode. I'm sure you'll listen. You love Rich. You love me. You'll listen to the Me and Rich episode, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay,
it's,
up today.
Things are in my queue. I'm still a little overwhelmed from the weekend and still feeling sorry for myself. So I'll get up to speed.
It's okay. By the way, I feel like people now, they tell me that they'll show that like they're rowing while they're watching us. So I think we should cheer them on really quickly. Go.
You
can do it.
Do a 1 minute interval just now.
Ready, go.
Exactly.
Okay. DM us if you did. DM us and tag us, and maybe we'll send you something.
That's right.
Okay, let's get back to, you're supposed to keep us focused, Cheryl.
Yeah, so we don't want to talk much about the DECA relays yet, even though I think that's going to be an interesting subject. When Dave comes back, maybe he'll have more information for us.
So we'll save that. Let's talk about old people thought they were down and out, but they're not.
Everybody was panicking, right?
Right.
And yet the rule book really hadn't changed. Here's what I remember.
Here's what you need to know. Once again, chat saves the day. I had to read Ian K's comment on someone else's post and put that and the rule book into chat to come up with this amazing graphic that I shared.
The flag chaser.
Hunter, right?
Yeah.
So say what you want about ChatGPT. Come on, that was beautiful. And it only took like 3 tries. The first time the flag was off, and here's the problem if anybody's messed with chat. If you say everything is great except the flag, change the flag, it will give you a whole new picture. So I had to talk to it about how to get around that. There's a loophole to get through it. I'm not going to explain it now.
Okay.
But so why don't you explain to people what the rule was, how they closed the loop on the flag hunter.
Okay, so this brings me back to a conversation the first time I ever saw you in person, that first time in Chicago, and you found that picture that you posted, right, of us in Chicago. And I don't remember who you were talking to at the time, but it was either Mo or somebody, but I didn't know all those people back then, right? You guys were standing around outside the venue, and I happened to mention that I was in the 55 to 59 age group and that I was frustrated that once I turned 60, I wasn't going to be able to race pro weights anymore. And he did that kind of standard HYROX, oh, what's the problem? There's no problem kind of thing, where he said, well, you can race pro. You just can't qualify for world championships racing pro.
It sounds like Doug. That was probably Doug.
Okay, it's probably Doug.
Not a bad guy, Doug. I'm just saying. I think that's probably who I was talking to.
Sure. And so
Christian aren't usually hanging out near the venue. Like they're usually, I don't see them necessarily.
No, it wasn't Christian, because I know who Christian is. Like everybody knows that man's handsome, right? So we're not going to forget who Christian is. So
wow, look at that.
Yeah, no, he's all right. So Anyway, but that's what he said, just kind of in this nonchalant, like, what's the big deal?
Right.
And for me, I was like, well, this is a big deal because I keep wanting to race pro even when I go into a new age group. So I kind of felt like the clock was ticking. And that's all that's happened with the 70-year-old. Is the only thing they've done is for the 60 to 69 age group now, we are just like everybody else in HYROX. If we want to qualify for world championships, we have to race pro weights. They're allowing us to race pro weights now. And that when we go to world championships, we will push pro weight. But now the age limit for open weight is at 70. That's the only difference, right? They just changed the age.
And it's honestly, it is like a safety.
Well, don't get me started on that. I don't want them babysitting me. If I think that I can push the sled, let me push the sled. That's a whole other issue.
But then what are you going to do? Like change it for certain ages, but if you sign a waiver, I don't know. I just feel like
Yeah.
they got to cut it somewhere.
No, sign a waiver. Look, I mean, I think maybe in the 70 plus age group, they allow open winners to qualify for worlds. I don't think there's going to be a ton of them anyway, right? And so maybe that's the give is that you can qualify in open if you want, but if you want to race pro, you can also qualify for pro. And I'm not so sure. I could see sort of keeping it open weights for world championships.
But it's also the idea of there's just not that many.
Right. What's the problem with putting that age group in with the 65 to 69s in the start tunnel? I don't see what the big deal is.
No, I thought it was more about like, well, is it really a world championship if you're like one of one?
So yeah, you're saying that, like, let's say in Vegas this year, I'm 72 years old. It takes me 2.5 hours to finish my race, but I'm the only 70 plus person to win, to be there. So I win and I qualify for worlds. Then that gets a little silly. I can see that.
But as a 53-year-old man who knows the difference between being 53 and 43, I think it's like we should just be celebrating just getting in there.
Absolutely.
Right? So maybe it shouldn't matter how many people qualify or don't qualify.
I just, I think people were panicking that they weren't going to be able to qualify for worlds, and they're totally going to be able to qualify for worlds.
Well, but the other piece was that at one point, age group qualified you for pro, though. That's the other thing that doesn't exist anymore.
Age group qualified you for pro. You mean that you would win your age group and then you would have to push pro weight in worlds? Is that what you're talking about?
That's what it was. You qualified. Pro championships were given away to pro people and AG people. Do you not remember this? It was just the year before last. They just changed it this year.
You're saying open.
Yes.
Open weight and pro weight.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that changed too, because now you can't qualify from open where you used to be able to. They would give out 3 spots for the pros and 3 spots for the open, remember?
Right. And they kind of changed that this last year.
That's what I'm saying.
They sort of let us know that kind of wasn't going to happen anymore. And now it's in the rule book that the only way you can qualify if you're in an open weight is if you're in a regional, which is only open weight. Right.
So you're saying it doesn't matter. Just but you can't have both though, is what I'm saying. I don't think they have enough for both, is what they're saying. They don't have enough for 70 open weights and 70 pro weights. They don't have enough for both of those.
Right. So so I'm in an age group that doesn't have a whole lot of people in it. And so there have been times that I have raced alone where, of course, I win because nobody else is there, right? And they only allow for a world championship qualification if you race other people. You can't just show up and win just by showing up. You have to have raced somebody else and beat them.
Can they get more clear about that, though? Because we still don't know what that is. And remember, Matt got screwed last year by going down to South Africa. And then they said, oh, yeah, we're actually not giving you away any. And it certainly wasn't because they didn't have enough people.
Yeah, no, it's just really arbitrary. And I think they need to be careful about being arbitrary. I think they just need to decide what they're going to do so that, because look, I need to be careful, like what race I sign up for. I need to hope other people are showing up, or else I don't have any chance to qualify for worlds. I'm relying on other people to show up to race as well. And that sucks. Like that's not under my control. I should be able to look up the website. I should be able to look up the race site and say, do I have a qualification for worlds if I win? And then have that just go forward. And they should be making that decision before they see who shows up.
Correct. All right. What were the other new rules we wanted to cover?
I think the time penalties are going to be a problem.
Okay. They changed it from distance to time, correct?
Yes. What do you think of that?
Well, what were they before?
So when I judged Las Vegas World Championships, I was in lunges. And if I was allowed to give a warning to someone for, say, not, movement standards not appropriate or whatever, and then if they did it again, I gave them a 10-meter penalty and I would walk them back 10 meters and then they would have to go. And so that's how it was taken care of right then and one and done. And now, so my husband, who's a judge, he is on this WhatsApp group for all the judges. And so he sees everything that's going on during the race, whether he's judging or not. He knows who needs to go clean up the vomit at the BBJs. This person just passed out. We need a medic. Like all the chatter that goes on between all the judges is on this one WhatsApp group. And so when he was at Ski Erg, people were jumping, which you can't do. The movement standard says that both feet need to be on the platform and you can raise your feet, but they need to stay on the platform. You can't jump because it breaks the ergs, right? To give that much force.
To start or repeatedly?
Like they're jumping while they're skiing.
So they're doing it wrong. Like that's not
Correct.
good anyway.
I think that it's their strategy. And he was very fascinated about the millions of strategies that he saw in Ski Erg. But so we would go up to somebody and he would say, you can't jump.
Can we ask chat, if you're in midair and jumping, right, repeatedly, yes, you are getting less because you're in the air. When you're grounded, you're using your whole bottom trunk.
I think that they're thinking they use their whole body weight that way. I think that's probably the philosophy.
But it sounds dumb. I can see you doing it to start, and you're a short person, right? You're short, right. Start.
Jump a little bit, yeah. That these people were jumping, right?
Right.
So the move is you walk up to the guy, it's usually a guy, right? You walk up to the guy and you say, hey, you can't jump. That's against the rules. And then they stop jumping, or they're like the guy that was like, that's dumb. I can jump if I want. And they keep jumping.
And then you give them a minute penalty.
And then the judge says, show me your arm. And they take a picture of the number on their arm and they send that to the group chat. And then some person up there knows to give that person the time penalty.
Sounds like an extremely efficient system.
Especially when people's numbers have started rubbing off.
Show me your arm. No.
Yes. And one of the guys didn't have a number on his arm. I don't know how he got into the start tunnel without a number on his arm.
Right.
But
I know at Spartan they've done that where someone was DQ'd and the guy just took off. They're all on the radios. Catch that guy. See what his headband says. See what his headband says. And if he's smart, he would chuck his headband and mix himself in with everybody else.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. The guy goes running off. Like he got a picture of him. But
right. Unlike Spartan, it's not as hard to catch him though, because they do have to keep running around and around. So you could eventually, your husband could eventually spot him. Probably.
Track him down. Yeah, that kind of thing. But think about like the farmer carry penalty, right? You're tossing those kettlebells and running off. How do you stop them and say, show me your arm, right? Like I do think that unfortunately people can really get away with stuff, I'm afraid, by having this kind of system.
Well, Stacy just bought these battery powered or rechargeable lighters, and it's essentially like a little shock. So I think that's what they should use. If you start running off with the farmer's carry, you give them a little jolt and they go, fuck, what was that? You go, hey, I'm giving you a penalty. What's your number?
Just get those tasers that go, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Not full on tasers, because that stops, you know what I mean? But just these little, they're small. You can carry in your pocket.
I don't know what they need to do, but I just think in theory, time is fine. I just think being able to nail down these folks is going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's any mass participation sport. It's really hard to catch cheaters.
Yeah.
And people that cheat, they don't want to get caught, or they think the rules don't apply to them. And for the most part, they're usually not the people taking podiums later, because then they're visible. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, oh, well, we saw that fucking guy cheating. I mean, I've definitely seen them, like, but then they just, it's happened in Spartan a bunch where it's like, everybody knows this guy cheated. He took second place. We all complain. That guy never comes back. You know what I mean? It's just, I think that's a silly system. I think assessing it at the time is probably always best.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when you've got, volunteer judges and thousands of people coming through, and, I mean, you yell at a judge. I think you just go cool, just put that in the chat, DQ that guy, and just call it
Right.
a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, that's easy. Like the fact that they let Sandy get away with that, right?
Yes. Bad
It's,
idea.
which, if we look at the Hunter example, now that wouldn't happen, right?
Mhm.
Now they probably would do something. The more I thought about it, Cheryl, boy, am I mad that they disqualified the whole team. It 100% should have been a financial or suspended penalty. You were 100% right. The more I thought about it, the more I thought this is ridiculous because
Not fair to them. Not fair to them.
it's not fair to the team. It didn't affect the outcome, right?
Right.
It 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 was one man's decision in a split second or moment that he was unsportsmanlike. He should be penalized for his unsportsmanlike conduct.
Right.
Now, if he had knocked the Australian team out and they were now behind because of it, that makes more sense than to grant them the first place win and take away 100% of the result from the US and they don't make any money, right?
Yeah.
The more I thought about it, the more I thought so much like 100% you penalize the man, not the
Yeah.
team. It made no sense.
Right. I just I don't know, when you get a face mask penalty in NFL, you don't tell the whole team to go home. I don't know. I think it's really, really unfortunate. And look, the sport is so new. We can talk about how unnailed down the rule book is. Dave will come back and talk about that.
They didn't rush it. They talked to everybody. They slept on it. Like they could have woken up and made a different decision.
Mhm.
And again, especially when they learned that Jeremy's hands weren't clean, that he
Right.
talked some smack, all of it plays into it, right?
Yeah. And both of them should have been penalized. I just think, I think it's one thing to kind of give somebody a hard time before the race and that kind of thing, but then to actually start physically impeding people on the course, that's just not good.
Right. And Jeremy did, in fact, impede Hunter beforehand. And then
exactly.
Hunter took it to this next level. So, yeah, I was clearly too tired to make clear thoughts. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that's insane. And, it also kind of like, is Hunter ever going to be on a relay team again? Like, probably not. Right. They're not going to want him.
Be.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's just made it weirder. I mean, listen, it's on them if they're going to make up or be friends or not. Like they're all adults, but it just created this rift to basically make the rest of the team say, fuck you, Hunter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if they didn't, they would just be like, all right, well, that was stupid, Hunter. And I probably won't pick you again as a teammate, but that was dumb. But it's all ugly. It's all a mess.
It is. It's really too bad. I doubt if the Australians wanted to win that way anyway. So, not easy. Not easy. There was a lot of stuff that went on that weekend for sure. And I think everybody was exhausted. And I think it was hard to kind of, work through the fog.
Yeah, I think they need a better because Matt is supposed to be technically ahead of like the sport or whatever, but Mo is the one making all the announcements and making the decisions. And like, is it just 5 people talking or you know what I mean? Like what is the actual process?
Mm-hmm. And they may need to refine that. So I don't
Right.
know. Every year it gets better. They're doing better every year. I really do like the fact that they've got now age groups in doubles that reflect the same. Like if you and I were to race, we wouldn't be racing against like really young 50-year-olds.
Which we did last time.
Right. Darn right we did. It makes a big difference, right? That 5 years.
What about relays though? Relays is still 10, right?
I don't think they've done anything with relays. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I think it's still the same.
Yeah, relay is just younger or 40 plus.
Yeah. It's just the fun intro to the sport. So
no, I'm fine with it. But yeah. yes, doubles they changed to 5 years instead of 10, which I guess they didn't really care. But now that there's a whole sports side around it, they figured this may as well make more sense. All right, let's end it. We'll welcome Dave next week. Hopefully he'll have Starlink in his new wherever the hell he lives.
I know. I want to talk about Deca relays for sure.
Okay, we'll save it for next week.
Yes.
All right. See you later, dude.
Thanks.